Like I say, in your own time, in your own way, just imagine that you've got a friend. Talk to the camera, but I think if you talk to us, you're sort of, you're kind of looking towards in the right direction, and just tell us what it's like to, why did you come, what's it like?
Okay. I first found out about Windhorse actually through Evolution. I was living in Lanark in central Scotland, and I was going along to the Glasgow Buddhist Centre, and some of the women there did this very mysterious thing. They worked together in a shop, and it seemed very ordinary. They sold giftware, but there was something going on with them that was quite different, and I really noticed it. What I picked up on was the communication that they had amongst each other, and I was quite inspired by that actually. The level of rapport, the way that they were able to bring in something else, something of their inspiration into what they did, something that seemed very mundane and wouldn't have attracted me normally. So I volunteered at the Evolution shop in Glasgow, and I did that. I think I did that for about a year. I volunteered one morning, I think it was, one morning to cover their team meeting a week, because I worked part-time at that time. I got more interested through that experience. And then later, I think it was probably about a year later, I wrote to them and asked if I could come and work with them. And I didn't live in Glasgow, and it meant me leaving where I was and moving to the city, and I don't come from the city either. So it felt like quite a big move, quite a big challenge, quite a big adventure actually. And then I had to wait to see if they were going to accept me, because in those days it was quite an unusual opportunity, and there were quite a few people that wanted to take up that opportunity. But after a month, I got accepted for a 3-month trial. So I made my move, and I took up my 3-month trial, hoping it would last longer than 3 months, of course. And it did. So that's how I started off. I started off in an Evolution shop in Byres Road in the West End of Glasgow, working with some women from the Glasgow Sangha.
I'll just interrupt, and what was it like? Because we might as well have a little bit about what it's like to work in one of the shops. Just say a little, don't feel you need to move straight onto here. Just be nice to have a couple of minutes of you saying what it was like to actually work in the shop. Working in an Evolution shop, my experience of working in an Evolution shop is it is very physically demanding, and it is an emotional challenge. Sharing the same space with the same people 5 days a week. And I think shop work, I think the only thing more challenging than shop work is probably running a cafe or a restaurant in terms of physical demand and being with the same people all the time. So really it's a practice of communication and teamwork very, very strongly, and your own stamina in that situation. And I must admit, when I started in the Glasgow shop, the first month, every night I came home and I lay in my bed for half an hour because I'd come from working for a charity. I'd had an admin job working for a charity, so I wasn't quite up to that level of being on my feet all day. But after that, I got my shop legs, you might say, and I got used to it. And in terms of the communication, I was also very used to having my own desk. I could have my own desk, my own phone, my own computer. And if I was having a bad day, I could just kind of, blank out a bit and hide at my desk. But when you're sharing basically 2 rooms with 4 or 5 other women, you can't do that. So I really went through a bit of a baptism of fire in that one, in learning to stop being such an introvert and start talking about how I was feeling and being direct about what was going on for me. And actually, although at the time sometimes it was quite painful, I think it's one of the best things that I've done, because I discovered things in myself that I probably wouldn't have discovered if I hadn't done that. And the great reward is getting to know people quite deeply, going through difficult and good experiences together, and seeing what mysterious alchemy can happen when you really offer yourself as much as you can to a project, a shared project, and to real communication with other people, not just the surface stuff that can quite often happen in a workplace. Yeah, so it's quite a full-on thing.
So you learn things about yourself?
Yes.
A couple of salient features of that?
Well, one thing I learned through evolution, actually, in the style of practice there was at evolution at the time, once you'd been there for a year and you knew the ropes, you could have a go at managing the shop. And the way we did it was you would manage, I think it was for a week. So the people who had enough experience would have a week or 2 weeks managing the shop, and then it was a rotating thing. And during my first year, not during my first year, but during my first few weeks of experience in the shop, I thought I had an issue with a particular person who was the manager. And then someone else took on being the manager, and I realised I had a similar issue with that person, and so on. And what I realised was that I just didn't like being told what to do in some areas. And if it had been a different management style, I don't think I would have learned that so quickly about myself. So it's quite confronting, really. And then, of course, when you get a chance to do that yourself, the shoe's on the other foot, and you think, and you realise what's really helpful and unhelpful about what other people do or how they respond. So that isn't a practice, I think, that happens so much now, but it was part of the creative possibilities in that situation when you've got people coming together and not holding on to roles, but trying to see how you can blend a working situation with your spiritual ideals in a creative way. I think it's still an exploration, even though, of course, there's pressure due to the situation with the economy more than there was in the past.
So you moved here. Tell us.
Yes.
How, when?
So I moved here in August 2003, and originally I came to work in the Cambridge shop. So I was going from evolution to evolution, and that was a bigger shop than the one I was used to. And I worked with some people who still work for Windhorse, actually, particularly Arya Jaya and the retail team. And what's my experience of coming here? Well, at the time that I came, it was just a very good bunch of experienced people that were there, mostly women who weren't ordained, actually. But they'd been doing that job for a couple of years, like myself. And I think that's one of my best experiences of teamwork, actually. It was still full on, it's still very busy, but somehow through having all of us having had some experience of that way of practicing and having had some kind of creative way of working with that, it meant that we could work together very smoothly, and that was very satisfying. It's like we knew how to run a shop and also we knew how to be able to bring in our inspiration in a natural way into that environment. So
why did you come here?
Why did I come to Cambridge?
To working here and doing what you do now?
Well, I think one of the biggest reasons that I came to Cambridge was because where I was in the Glasgow Sangha, there weren't many people my age, and that was a big factor. Although when I first started going to the centre and getting involved in Buddhism with the Triratna Buddhist community, there were a few more people my age. By that time, for whatever reason, there weren't so many, and I was starting to feel a bit lonely. I was in a Going for Refuge group with a bunch of very good women who all had grown-up children, and they were great, and they were good fun, and they were very experienced. But, I kind of wanted to be with people who were into what I was into. There was one women's community, there was one shop, Right Livelihood Business, which actually began to struggle as well.